Hey! Hello, everybody.
Yay!
Did you see the new intro?
Hello.
Maybe not.
I
There's a
couldn't
new
see the
intro with music and
What's it
everything.
look like?
I've added some music and things. You'll have to look when we're finished. It looks good.
You're very good at this tech stuff.
Well, I'm trying. Anyway, welcome. This is episode 2. We're going to call them episodes. Episode 2 of our live stream, Unleash Your Game-Changing Potential. And we have a new GCologist who's joining us. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. I hope you can hear and see me okay. I'm not sure about my internet connection right now, but yeah, I'm hoping it will hold.
I know, UE internet connection, isn't it? It's interesting.
Yes, me too. It could be a fun call, this one.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll just go with the flow. That's how it is. So today we're going to be talking about the GC Index profile. So last time we spoke about the GC Index, kind of introduced what it was, how we got introduced to it, and just kind of a broad overview. That was with myself and Siobhan. But obviously we have Sarah joining us now going forward for these live streams, which is awesome. So yeah, I think if we do a quick introduction again, because there might be some people who don't know who we are, and then we can get into what is included in the profile. Siobhan, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. So yeah, I'm Siobhan, and I'm a HR consultant and coach. Hopefully like Natalie and Sarah, which is why we all get on so well. And I'm in the UK, and one day we're going to do this together in the same room, and I'm going to come over and see you guys in Dubai. I've decided that's my plan for the next 12 months. Let's make it happen.
Sounds like a good plan.
That sounds awesome. Yes, there are absolutely tons of recording studios and stuff here for podcasts. So yeah, we'll be able to find somewhere suitable, I would imagine.
I bet. So yeah, that's the plan, is to all my clients obviously in the UK at the minute, but I'd like some international experience. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Fabulous. Sarah, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Happy to, yeah. So I'm Sarah. I've been here in the UAE for 14 years now this year.
Wow.
Started off also in HR and all of that space, and now, yeah, since a couple of years also have my own little space in the coaching and consulting workshop kind of business, especially around brain-based coaching. So I like to use neuroscience in terms of more impact. And then also, obviously here, the GC Index, which we are going to talk about today. And I'm very excited about, let's say, to share our insights and ways forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have a collective goal. I think all of us can absolutely say that we want as many people to go through the GC Index as possible. So we are flying the flag for GC Index.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm 10%, right? What's the goal?
Yeah.
10% of the world?
I think it was 10% of the world. We can get there. Absolutely. We'll just contribute to our global connections.
I wonder if they're actually measured what percentage it is currently. We'll have to ask.
That's a good question.
GC.
That next time when we know how much the target is. That sounds like a good idea. And I am Natalie Walker, so I run Harmony HR Coaching, and I use the GC Index around change, impact and transformation around HR service and coaching HR leaders. A couple of coaching programs I've just launched. I'll be launching a few different times next year. So one is a group coaching program, and the other one is a one-to-one coaching program. And I have a membership around GC Index and change and transformation and helping people provide some knowledge and some learning, really. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Fabulous.
We all do similar things in slightly different ways.
Well, there's never enough coaches in the world, surely. So somebody said that. It was like, there's too many coaches. And then the response from the said coach, I think it was Anna, wasn't it, who said, yeah, but we've got loads of lawyers as well.
Yeah, and maybe people should ask, who has a coach? And then the answer is probably quite
yeah.
slim.
It's tiny, I know, and I know I've
tiny.
really benefited from having a coach in the past. So I'm one of those that I coach because I have been coached and I know what the value is. So it's not
Yeah.
just flying the flag for GC Index; it's about coaching and development around that as well, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Right. So let's dive into the GC Index, and I think I'm going to swap screen and go to Sarah, your profile, just so we can kind of show people what it looks like. And we can go through what's included because it's quite long. It's about 28 pages that you get, isn't it, with a GC profile?
Yeah. It's
So
quite
quite a chunky document. So this is what a profile looks like. I think what I liked about the GC Index profile was it's very structured but short and succinct as well. There's good information, but it's relevant. So, explaining what it is, explaining what the numbers mean, typical profiles and what they kind of are, followed by go through your profile. I don't know what either of you thought about that. Siobhan, should we go to you first?
Yeah, good hosting. It's very, I think it's the language, as you say, is very succinct and it's very practical, which is what I liked about it as well. Sometimes I think I love different types of profiles, different types of psychologies, and I think as a coach, you can get really drawn into the psychology behind it. But actually, if you're not a coach, what does that even mean sometimes? So this, I think anyone could. You need a GCologist to kind of translate it and ask all those open questions to understand how the different proclivities react with each other. But also, when you take that away after your coaching session, you can keep referring back to it and it still makes sense. You don't need to be a psychologist or a coach to understand it, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. The practical, I think, is a good word because I think that is a good description of the GC Index anyway, something that you can use in business, something that's quite pragmatic and is useful, and keeping that language that anybody can use. Again, I remember that from doing the training. It was all around a common language that people understand and can use, and that's a fundamental thing, isn't it? If you want customers to be able to use and engage it, it has to be something that people understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sarah, what were your thoughts on the first few pages of your profile that you get?
So when I did my profile, I absolutely loved it. Why? So if you can see, I'm a playmaker implementer. So I'm all about, also getting things done. I could see immediately the practical application of this tool. Not only it's a nice color, like pop in color, kind of, but it's very actionable. It's easy to understand. You do not have to study psychology to understand this tool. It's not, let's say, like some of the other tools sometimes seem a little bit unnerving for people, maybe a little bit dark or mysterious, and so I feel this one is really positive and strength-based and actionable, and speaks the corporate language. So very good when you are working in the corporate world and trying to, let's say, either coach people, leaders, teams, because it's very, very easy to understand in that sense. So I was very excited about the tool when I first took it, and still am.
Yes. Yeah, mysterious is a good word to use. I like that.
Yeah.
That was a good word. Fab. So, should we go through your profile, and since we are staring at it, and just kind of explain what the page is? So what I liked about, again, with the profile is you have your scores, and then right next to it, you've got the circle, which explains everything. And we kind of went through it loosely last time. However, I think we should probably go through it again in terms of what the different proclivities are. So I will start with the game changer. And this is kind of where it all started, wasn't it, for the GC Index, the game changer proclivity?
Yeah.
You want to take us through the game changer, or?
No, if you have any particular thoughts on the game changer, then please. I think you're probably the best one to go through because I think yours is higher than both mine and Siobhan's.
Ah, really? Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I wouldn't probably describe myself as the typical game changer, if you like. But yeah, game changers, obviously, as the name says, is they are thinking about future stuff. Yeah, how to change the game, how to do something that has never been done before. They don't like to be really drawn in by limitations or things like, we've always done it like this, so we should, continue doing it like this. They hate this kind of stuff. So they really want to think of things in a limitless way, or in a way that's creative, challenging, different, out of the box. I always, when I speak with clients, I always put Elon Musk there. I don't know, on one of the old profiles, he was there as well in terms of game changing. I feel whenever there's something out there in the world, he's kind of that game changer mindset from my perspective. But essentially, so that's the game changer. So people who really think in the future, of possibilities.
Yes, and that, I really love that exists, and you can see it in people that you've worked with before. I know that I do not have it. It's one of my lowest goals, but really admire people who can think of things I've never been thought of before. Elon Musk is a great example. Obviously, quite contentious sometimes, but I suppose that's what game changers are, aren't they?
Yeah, that's just true. This is true.
Yeah. So the strategist, I'll take the strategist because I'm quite high in that one. So the strategist is all about seeing patterns and being able to think of the future, being able to plan for the future, and translating that into a strategy for other people. And I see it in myself a lot, and I think my son's starting to pick up on it, because I am constantly thinking of the future and planning for things and thinking, oh, let's do this, this, and this, and then we'll get here. I think it irritates him. Because we were talking about, his future, what he wanted to do, and he mentioned, he's like, oh, Matt, I'm considering the military. I was like, all right, okay, well, maybe we need to do X, Y, and Z. He just looked at me and he went, why?
The why, that's important.
Frame that in a little bit. But yes, thinking of the why, being able to explain that to people, and being able to describe the vision. So again, really important in a team. And then next we have the implementer. Siobhan, you're a strong implementer.
I am, and so are you. So implementers like to get stuff done. So it's all about that kind of moving forward motion, action of you're always progressing, you're always moving on. But also have that pragmatic side. So if you want something done to 80%, if you want something out the door and you just got to get moving, then you want your implementers to do that. So it's just that momentum of getting stuff done and delivering, I suppose, is another good one. Is they kind of deliver, implementers.
A great explanation. And following on from that, the polisher. Sarah, you're quite a strong polisher.
Yeah, and that's also sometimes my downfall. So polishers, they like to take what implementers have done and make it kind of even better. Yeah, they always see how we can improve. Very high standards of excellence, very high standards of quality, always learning, always improving, review a lot. Can struggle with getting things out of the door if they don't feel that it's perfect. So I think, if you're quite high here, that can always be a challenge, as in every area, I guess. But for me, I think, especially in those areas where it matters, that's where I like to polish. So not overly, but then where it matters and where it has an impact in that sense. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that is absolutely interesting in terms of your profile. So we'll get to that in a second, because that is interesting as an implement polisher for you. And finally, we have the playmaker, which, great strength to have in terms of being able to work with people, find out their ideas, being very collaborative. I see that as somebody probably in an ideal role would be in, project management, being that person who can take everybody on board and understand what their needs are, and making sure that that is part of that project going forward. And what I do like, we'll talk about this when we get to my profile, because I am very low in this score. And I think it quite alarms people when they see that, like, oh, you're a one and a playmaker, I care about people. And that's not true at all.
Yeah.
No.
So I think it can be quite a stark thing that people see.
Yes.
You know, part of the WhatsApp group that we're with, quite a few people sometimes react negatively to that, don't they? It's assumed that it's a bad thing, when actually it's not when you fully understand it.
Yeah.
And actually, what we've seen in the big data is a lot of HR people are actually low playmakers. And at first you're like, oh, we're in a people role, how can we be low playmakers? But actually it's because we have to make decisions sometimes that don't please everybody, and it's all about the bigger picture. And we've all got that people drive, that we want to do the right thing by people, but we're not going to wait until, or have to rely on everyone agreeing, because it's almost impossible. So you have to make difficult decisions sometimes, but it doesn't mean you don't like people. It doesn't mean you're not prioritizing people. It just means that sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, I would say.
And I think it means also, if you're low, it's easier for you to make those decisions, right? And that's part of the playmaker score here, where you are if you're very high, it also makes it more difficult for you to make maybe decisions that seem harsh on people, but are simply important and necessary. It just means that you might not battle as much with it, let's say, than others.
Yeah, that's a good good takeaway. The good thing about the circle on the right as well, so it talks about being ideas focused and task focused. I think it's a good graphic, isn't it, for people to be able to see, because it has, you know, a few words that we've mentioned already: pragmatism on one side, imagination versus obsession, and innovation. So you can quite clearly see how those strengths have kind of been defined. Is a good word.
Yeah.
I always, in my reviews, I always struggle to say, what is it? Like a ball. I think you also just said ball before, Natalie. Yes. Someone in my sessions actually said it's a compass. I quite like that.
Oh. That's nice. That's nice. I'm going to steal that. Yeah.
It helps you navigate, right? Not only yourself, but also others. So I found that quite good, actually.
Yeah.
Love that. Compass, that's what we're going to use going forward. Compass, compass.
Yeah, it might also make sense, because we were talking about the different areas now. It has numbers linked to it. So maybe we also explain a little bit around that.
Perfect segue into the fact that it is measured by numbers, as you can see from your profile on the screen there. So it goes from 1 to 10, and that is your proclivities in terms of strength. And no number is a bad number. Obviously, when people see 1 to 10, it's naturally attributed to performance, isn't it? And, you know, if a 10 is a good, 1 is bad. So I think those are the types of things that I tend to talk around with clients, because, again, alarming, you see 1 that's an 8, 1 that's a 2. Oh, this looks bad. Just because of culturally, I think that's what we assume with everything when you have a number scale, but it's not.
No, absolutely. And actually there's a double-edged sword to all of them, isn't there? And one of the things we say, with the higher the number, you're more likely to get drawn into things. Middling numbers, you draw on it, and then low numbers means it takes your energy away. But that doesn't mean you're bad at it, or you're not, you know, maybe you don't like it, but it doesn't mean you're bad at it. It just means it takes your energy away. So it's being mindful of where you can make your best impact, because if it gives you energy, you're likely to be more productive in it.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, Siobhan, because where I also have a lot of discussions is around competence and skill. Okay. And when people see this, they're like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm not good at this. And you always have to pull them back and say, no, you can probably do this area. You can probably also do it good. But this is nothing to do with your skill or competence. It's more about where you like to or would like to spend your energy on, which is easy, self-sustaining energy, rather than, you know, draining, and I have to do this, and it feels heavy and hard and frustrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because again, when I did the training, we were talking about the profile of the playmaker being quite low, and I said, yeah, but back to my earlier point, it's not that you don't like people; it's that it takes away from your energy. It takes a lot more effort to do that. You probably have to put things in place to make sure that you do that, to remind yourself. Do you put it in your calendar, whatever it might be, particular things to be able to make sure that you up your activity in that area, and to plan appropriately, because it will sap your energy. But it's a learned behavior as well. People like to be with other people, so it's not that they can't do that. It just takes a lot more effort, a lot more thought, to make sure that you do that. And I think the profile is good for that, because you can see where your strengths are and where perhaps things sap your energy, so that you can plan your role a bit better to be able to flex appropriately and understand when things are going to sap your energy more.
Yeah, and some of this stuff's quite subconscious as well, isn't it? Because that tends to be the aha moment with when I'm doing my sessions with people, is it's something that they haven't consciously thought about before, and then when you flag it up and talk about it and go into what might be going on, they're like, oh, so that's why. So it always brings to light those kind of things that you don't really think about.
Yeah, agreed. So, Sarah, do you want to talk through your numbers?
I can.
Yeah, just briefly.
So,
you don't have to
yeah.
go into detail.
So maybe just to recap on the numbers. So as you said, Natalie, 1 to 10 is the scale. You have a 7 to 10, which is high energy, self-sustainable energy, doesn't get less the more you do of it, let's say. That's how I tend to explain it. Then you have, like, say, the medium energies, which is 4 to 6. So that's sometimes down to a little bit of discipline, but also, self-sustainable energy, kind of a mix, depends a little bit. Obviously, 6 is higher than a 4. And then you have the area of 1 to 3, which is low energy, or considered low energy, which means really hard work, frustrating, annoying. If someone else could do this for you, maybe it would be better.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So maybe in terms of energy, I guess you can see that there's no low energy in my profile. But will also help to explain why the playmaker might be high. So my profile in terms of impact, leadership impact, we have always our top 2 as playmaker, implementer. So which essentially means that I like to get stuff done through and with people, and then polishing quite high as well. So the standard and let's say quality also needs to be there. Creative part at the top, let's say, is a little bit, or imagination, as we say, is maybe a little bit less. So I would probably describe myself more of a matter-of-factly kind of person rather than the creative one. But I love when people have ideas. I can jump onto ideas, maybe develop them further. I might not be the person who's, the initial idea bringer or giver. My strategist, I would have thought that would also be a little bit higher, because I do like to have and need a why in terms of operating. So just doing for the sake of doing is also not how I roll. So I think we say if it's a 5, you at least need a why to operate. But if it's higher, then you also want to create that why. I don't have that desire to create the why necessarily, but I do have to have it in order to, implement, let's say, properly and the right thing. So when I first read my profile, I personally found it matched very well. I also had there was a comment in terms of leadership impact, which said leader as coach, which is exactly what I'm doing. And I, at that point, thought, wow, it's like amazing how exact it describes, what I do or like to do. So, that's a little bit about the profile in general, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, what I find interesting about yours is the playmaker implementer with the polisher. I think that's a really interesting mix.
Yeah. Why do you say that? Yeah.
Just because with an implementer, you like to get things done, and necessarily when you're trying to get things done through people, it's not the fastest. So I imagine that causes some frustration in terms of wanting to deliver, but obviously having to involve people. And then especially with the polisher, also wanting to be perfect, which is probably sometimes in contradiction to the implementer of 80% is fine. So I think that must be an interesting mix as well to play out in the work context.
Yeah. I think it's so it always depends, right, on the context and what you are doing. So if it's something probably that's so let's imagine a coaching client, that's important for me to have the playmaker and the implementer in order to help them to get stuff done, but they will actually do it, right? So I have to if I have the idea that let me try to think how to say this. So in that case, polishing might not be so important because actually the person who's doing it for themselves, but with my support. Whereas if I'm doing maybe something where I also have to implement or send an email, put a proposal together, whatever that might mean, I will be more polishing on that side, let's say, yeah. But also means if I'm working with people, that I have quite a high, let's say, I expect quite a high standard, and that can be sometimes, annoying for people.
I can relate to that one. What were you going to say, Siobhan?
I was just going to comment on playmakers generally, and how I've always think they're really interesting. We've got loads of resources on playmakers because they're interesting folk, because their energies tend to be relatively even. You very rarely find a playmaker that has 10s or 1s. And I think, and I don't know, you tell me if I'm wrong, Sarah, and how this might come out in everyday life with you, but because it's through other people, you find you can flex a little bit more the energy depending on who you're working with, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yes, I think playmakers are very interesting.
Yes, always. Fabulous. Right, I'm going to move on to my profile, which is, in contrast, not very even at all, and is probably the extremes of either side. So can I change our... Oh, look, I changed the layout as well, so we're down the side. That looks better. So this is my profile. So as you can see, I'm a 3 in terms of game changer, and I do like to be creative and think of ideas. But typically for me, it's probably coming from my past experience of working a very different thing, various different places, and I'll think back to go, right, that's what we did there. That might work, and change it to adapt it. So being creative, but not Elon Musk creative. that's never going to happen. And then I am very extreme. So I'm a 10 strategist and a 10 implementer. So I think mine is strategist implementer, implementer strategist. Siobhan, is that right?
Yeah, there's the ideas first, then tasks. So you'll be a strategist implementer.
I thought it was. So yeah, very high in those areas, and then a 5 from a polisher, and that comes out because I do like continuous improvement. So again, very similar to what you said, Sarah, I've got really high standards, and I have to remember, and I am quite tolerant of that. I know that not everybody's got high standards, but I do hold myself to incredibly high standards. Reputation is very important to me. Quality of work is very important to me. So that's where that comes out. But I'm a 5. It doesn't stop me from, I'll probably do the 8% and throw it out there a lot, especially being a 10. I'd rather just get it out there and do something and then tweak it as I go, rather than it be perfect before it goes out. And then, as I already mentioned, I am a 1 and a playmaker. I absolutely know that. It goes back to what Siobhan said earlier in terms of I'm not afraid to make business decisions. I really care about people. However, I'll make the decision that's right for the time, whether that be business, team, whatever it is. I'm able to make those decisions. And, roles that involve a lot of networking or a lot of persuading people to ideas, etc., probably isn't the right role for me. Which really probably explains a lot around my career and the things that I've been drawn to. So I tend to be a problem solver and a fixer. So
Yeah.
if something's broken, absolutely bring me in and set me away, and I'll come up with a strategy as to
Consulting also,
see the pattern, know what the problem is, be able to come up with a plan to be able to rectify it over a period of time, and then absolutely implement it to get it done. And that's what I've connected to in terms of my coaching. I really wanted to help HR leaders to be able to do that. Do you need help with the strategy? What does your HR service look like? What does it need to look like for the future? Coaching and supporting around being able to implement that. So it's interesting. I hadn't, even though I'd been through the GC index, I hadn't naturally planned it that way, but it has happened by accident.
Yeah, and I think your profile is great for coaching HR leaders, because I think HR tend to be quite good at the implementing as a profession. But you might find, and I probably think maybe earlier in my career, my playmaker might have been higher than it is now. And actually your coaching could really help focus on that bigger picture piece, and rather than worrying so much about the detail and the people. Obviously you are worrying about the people, so I should categorize that, but it's bigger picture, so not getting too into the weeds of things all the time and worrying about that one issue, when actually if you looked at the bigger picture you might solve 10 issues for 10 people. So I think that mindset is really, really helpful when you're coaching HR people.
Yeah, and I like to bring a sense of clarity to people. So tell me what the issue is. We'll talk through it, and get a plan that works for you in the right context, drawing on experience and skills and all that type of good stuff. But as a coach, I'll be very particular, and I won't appeal to everybody. But that's the point. That's why there should be more coaches, so that people have got choice.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, quite pragmatic and very direct. Some feedback I've had before. The negatives. So some of the challenges that came out. So I put this into ChatGPT. So we should probably talk about that. So the GC Index has an amazing ChatGPT that you can ask questions of, and I put my scores into it. And the challenges were around the Playmaker score being quite low and being able to network and continually build those relationships. I think I'm better on a one-to-one basis. So I've got a lot of personal relationships with people that I've coached before or people that have worked with me before. And we get on great and I touch base very regularly. However, building that broader network and business, probably of new people, I think is the thing, is something that I do struggle with. And I think I have had that struggle since launching the business.
That's a good reflection, I think, and especially when you're early on in your business, you have to do loads of networking and things. You're trying to find your tribe, aren't you? And when you found them, great, but it can be quite. I can reflect a little bit on that myself. You go to a networking thing and you think, well, I need to go and sit in a dark room for a couple of hours now afterwards.
Yeah. And I would say for me, more so since having the business and probably being here. I don't know whether that is because, in my previous role, leading a huge team of people, you're talking to people a lot, but you already know them, don't you? So you're not start from scratch. Whereas in the minute, especially when having your own business, you start from scratch all the time. And I do find after I've been to a networking event, I am absolutely shattered.
Yeah, probably because it's hard work for you, right? It's not about if you can't do it, but it's hard work. Yeah, meeting all those people, getting all those insights. What I find as well is, so for me, networking is okay. I like to meet new people, hear their stories and things like this, but also having your own business kind of isolates you a little bit. So that's what I don't know how you guys feel, let's say, but for me, I also miss colleagues at times or counterparts. Being a playmaker, I like to also collaborate, right? So get ideas from each other, have some, sparring partner sessions, let's say. So that serves me quite, or is sometimes a little bit tricky for me being on my own, let's say. So I really enjoy this.
And I think you're
part of something.
I was just going to say you're absolutely right, and I think but one of the advantages of working on your own business is you can meet people like you guys, because I wouldn't, if I was still in my corporate role, I would never have met you guys. It is that once you find people, you have more diversity of people, I suppose, that you're coming across. So it's in the longer term, it's you can create your own kind of colleagues, I suppose, but it's that process of getting to that point that's going to be quite tricky.
Yeah, it is. It takes longer and it takes a lot more work, because when you go to a company, you're put into a situation with other people, and naturally you end up collaborating and working with them. Whereas here, you're discovering them for yourself.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
say. Fab. Okay, cool. Siobhan, let's go on to your profile.
Yeah.
Oh, change the setup back. That was a bit weird. Anyway, I'm back to this one. I like this one. Looks nice. Right, Siobhan, do you want to talk us a little bit through? Yeah. Do you want to talk us through the highlights on your profile?
Yeah, so I'm probably a toned down version of you, Natalie. I'd say.
Everybody's a toned down version.
I mean, we both got implementer energy, and you can see that with, I mean, a bit like this. Oh, let's do some LinkedIn lives. Yeah, okay, cool. And we just do it. Don't worry about it being polished or too good. We'll perfect it as we go along, and people will enjoy the journey. It's a journey. So yeah, very much implementer energy. I'm the opposite to you. Well, not the same proclivities, but the other way around. So I'm an implementer strategist. Whereas the other way around, the strategist would look at the why and then implement, whereas I have a tendency to go straight into implementation mode and then draw on the strategy. But actually that leads on, because when I very first took the GC index, my profile actually looked slightly different. And one thing to say about the GC index is it's very stable and it's very robust, and it does give you a snapshot of who you are in essence. So it still reflects who I am, but it's also very situational. And when I first took the GC index, I was procrastinating a lot about wanting to start up my own business, but wasn't quite sure what that looked like, and I wasn't sure if I was brave enough, and did I know enough about things. And I was also in a role where I was struggling, because now I understand why. I had a lack of strategy. So with my energies, I need to know why I'm doing things, and that was missing for me. And what had happened is my polisher had turned up, so I was procrastinating and trying to make things perfect before I would go out and into the big scary world. And actually, when I did take that leap and started my own business and thought, right, I want to become a GCologist, that's going to be one of my tools of choices, I retook my profile, and it was probably a year later. And this is what it now looks like. And this is, I would say, is more me. This is more reflective of, because I'm a lot happier. I've still got polishing tendency, so and that tends to be more around putting pressure on myself and looking like I'm competent and I know what I'm talking about. And so I still have that element, but what was happening before, it was more of a hindrance. It was holding me back. But now that I'm more into that, I know why I'm doing things. I've got that strategy. I can draw on it. I'm definitely feel like I'm working with my energies now, whereas before I was almost working against them, I would say. So that's quite an interesting. So if I've had a coachee who is maybe feeling disconnected and doesn't know quite what's going on, sometimes it's worth, after the coaching interventions, to see if anything's changed in their profile, because actually that could be a good indication of, has those interventions worked, and are you in a better place from a well-being perspective as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, so and my game changer was also slightly higher, because I was trying to think, oh, well, if I'm going to have my own business, I need to do something new and innovative. But actually what I realized, and that was really difficult for me, but what I've realized now is actually there's loads of information out there. There's loads of really, really cool, innovative stuff happening. and I can take those ideas and do something with them. I don't have to invent them myself. So that was a massive learning curve for me as well. So it's quite interesting to see the journey, I would say.
Yeah, it is interesting
Yeah.
how a situation can impact how you view yourself, and if you're turning up particular activities to address it, and perhaps you don't realize it until you go through an assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it made so much sense in terms of why I was feeling burnout, why I was procrastinating, why I couldn't move forward. And as a high implementer, I have a drive to keep moving forward. And when I was stuck, that's a really difficult place to be as an implementer, because the last place we want to be is stuck. We're always about moving on, aren't we? So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just think, I mean, I would love for everybody to go through this and have their assessment done, just because it gives you that extra information to be able to reflect when things aren't going so well, or when things are going so well, and what that means for you to be able to map your future. So I think it's a really powerful tool from that perspective as well.
Yeah. And especially what you said, Siobhan, in terms of now being happier, right? So from a well-being perspective, from a productivity perspective, from a impact perspective, let's say finding a spot, be that a job, a project, whatever that might mean, that suits your energies, is worth so much, let's say, in terms of those areas, right? So that's what we're here for, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm just going to go back to the screen with the three of us. So I was just reflecting there from that conversation about one of the assessments that I did recently with an individual who had been an HR business partner. So, standalone role, responsible for your own destiny, get to do all those things as an HR business partner, working with executive teams, and then was promoted to have a team, very specialist as well. So I think it was apprenticeship talent and things like that. So very specialist, had a team. And it was clear from when we went through the profile that her reflections were that her team are probably very different to her. So she had very high standards and high implementer. So I think she was a polisher implementer, and she didn't feel like her team were probably not coming up with ideas, generating ideas. She felt like she was having to do it all the time, which wasn't her natural instinct. So interesting when you go through it with people and they reflect about not just maybe their colleagues or their team, and how their style is influencing their team, or not influencing, or why they're feeling frustrated, and how to adjust to that, really. So, our conversation was around, well, your team, they will have different strengths. How do you use them better to support you in what you're trying to deliver? But also, you can't overuse and get into the detail and do it because you want to, for whatever reason, whether it's taking too long, or you feel like you need to deliver quicker, so you're doing that. As a leader, you can't do that. That's not your role. You're there to help and support your team, and although you might find that frustrating, it's better that you coach them through that. So in terms of leadership and how you use it, especially when you're newly promoted as well, when you're used to doing everything yourself, it can impact that journey for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of giving you that helicopter view of zooming out a little bit, isn't it? To see actually what is playing out here. Why am I feeling like this? Why is that my interaction with the team not going how I think it is? And I think that's a really good reflection.
Yeah, and I must say, I love going through people's profiles and asking them questions. I don't know about yourself, but any particular ones that stick out to you of a similar example?
I had one where it was a guy who had taken on a new role, and it was within the same company, and it was a role on paper that was perfect. It was in an area he was really interested in. He really liked his manager, so it should have been perfect. He goes, but I'm just not. There's something missing, and he couldn't describe what was missing. And then when we looked at his profile, we went through it. What we found out was he had a really high polisher proclivity. So it was all about high standards, continuous improvement, making things great. And actually, because it was a newly formed team and a newly formed activity, they were still in that forming phase. They weren't ready to polish yet, so he wasn't doing any of that. And he goes, that's what's missing. I understand now. So what happened was he then went and spoke to his manager and said, look at this. This is what's missing. And the manager was like, fantastic, because we are going to need to do some polishing, and let's look at how we can bring that into the role. And it was easy to adjust. So it was, but before that point, he couldn't describe to his manager what was missing, because he didn't quite know what was missing. And actually, it was a simple fix in the end, and it helped to kind of engage more in the activity that he was doing, and he was happy in that role, which is what he was driving for in the first place. So that was a light bulb one even for me, because I thought, this is giving him the language to describe what was going on when he couldn't do that before.
Yeah, I think that language point is really good, especially picking on Sarah's point from earlier. It's a positive language. I feel like that when you look at it, it's a positive tool. So you can go away and have a really constructive conversation like what you've just described, because it gives you that positive language and a way to describe it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sarah, do you have any ideas that any previous profiles that you've done that come to mind?
Yeah, actually, I've come across quite a few latent profiles, and maybe that's also another topic for one of the calls. But that means energy 5 and below, and there were quite a few profiles in let's say one company, simply because at least that's what we found out during the conversations. It's a startup that's kind of, let's say, maturing a little. People have flexible roles and might not always know what is my role, what not, and one of the persons also already had taken on a new role and was kind of trying to find her way. So that reflected also on the GC index. So we are about to retake, let's say, her profile and see if anything has changed since then. Because when you have a latent profile, it means there's either something going on, or it can also be that that's just how it is. But you always can retake within a year to just see if anything has changed or stabilized and things like this. So
that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's that lack of direction because of the situation could have had an impact. Yeah, really interesting. And I feel like that's kind of when you're trying to be superhuman, you're trying to do everything, aren't you? That's probably
in this case, it was a little bit like this. Exactly. Yeah.
Or sometimes it's when they've disengaged as well. That can be the other way. It comes out with a latent profile, and I've seen it before where somebody was heading towards retirement, and that was the only positive latent profile I'd seen. It was like, well, because I'm chill. I don't have to worry about this anymore.
Oh, that's fab. Absolutely fab. But I think, as a well-being tool, I know we mentioned this briefly last time, Siobhan, but as a well-being tool, it's really important, because there's so many things going on in your life. You can't be expected to know exactly why you feel in a particular way. It could be anything. At least you need some data to help inform that conversation, to ask some questions and reflect on what's happening, to be able to understand what it might be and then what your plan of action might be to resolve it.
Yeah, I think that's it. It gives you data. It gives you something to work from, to understand what's going on.
Creates awareness, starting point, if that's your first thing that you do, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fab. Okay. Any other final closing points before we close the stream?
Oh. I think this has been a good way to kind of opened up a can of worms of what else we want to talk about in the next ones, I think.
I know. So I was trying to look for the list of what we came up with. Where did I put it? That was the question. I did make the notes somewhere as to what the next one's going to be. I think the next one is the Thursday, the 5th of December.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So we'll be together then. What the topic will be, we'll have to announce it, because my organisation has failed me today, and I don't know where I put the list. But we did come up with a long list of things that we're going to do. And next time we will advertise it and give a shout out and go through something else more equally interesting, so that we get people excited and understand how this can help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. Well, thank you both. It's been absolutely wonderful. And thank you for anybody that did join us. And we'll be back again on the 5th of December, rolling into Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do a Christmas edition
scary.
on the GC Index.
I'm going to have Santa hats. I don't know if I have a Santa hat. I might have to get one.
Yeah, Santa hats or reindeer horns or something.
Okay, fine. We'll do a Christmas theme and we'll go for it. And maybe we can pick a topic that kind of links to that, maybe. Let's have a think. Challenge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, people do use, especially with the young people index, you do use it with families. So maybe that could be interesting when you're getting all your family together on Christmas Day when you haven't seen them for a year, and all the different proclivities play out. Maybe that's one for January to.
Yeah, I don't know if you did the GC indexes with your families also. I did with mine, and it's quite interesting what happens.
What did you?
Yeah,
it's so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I joke with my husband quite regularly. He goes, "This is our proclivities again." Stops you arguing sometimes, not always, but sometimes.
Oh, fab. We've had an comment as well. Yeah, so yeah, maybe we can do that. I haven't done it with my husband yet. The kids are too young, but I'm desperate for Isaac to be able to do it at some point. Daniel's a couple of years younger, so he's got a little while to wait. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what my husband is, because I think he'll be an implementer as well.
Yeah, interesting.
Maybe a bit different. I might have to do that between now and the next time and see what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, back to your point, Siobhan, it's like proclivity bingo, isn't it, on Christmas Day?
Yes, exactly. And you can see around the table what's going on. Interesting. And my husband's also an identical twin, so I'm always studying those two because I find that fascinating.
Wow.
What's different and what's the same. So my own little experiment going on.
Oh, bless them. They're just trying to enjoy the Christmas dinner. Oh, fabulous. Right. Both of you have a lovely rest of the day and week, and I'll speak to you next time on the 5th of December.
Lovely. See you guys then.
See you guys then. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.